This week I want to talk to you about compare and contrast. Compare and contrast is when you're writing a paper or looking at anything in life and you're trying to find out how these two things are either alike or how they're different. When you compare, you're looking at the similarities, and when you contrast, you're looking at the differences. So when do we use these skills? These skills are actually used all the time. You do it at the mall when you're looking for clothes, if you're trying to compare two different ideologies for a class assignment or trying to learn about them, if you're trying to choose a major, writing a report, even things as simple as selecting a gym or maybe even which Girl Scout cookies to buy. A comparison and contrast helps us understand the subject that we are seeing by looking at how it is related to something else. So it actually allows us to have a deeper understanding of a topic. You can simply compare and discuss the similarities, or you can contrast and only discuss the differences. But more than likely, you'll usually use both techniques together. Most things have some things that are alike and some things that are different. Comparison and contrast work best when they're applied to two items that have something in common. For example, a paper about cats and dogs would be a lot more interesting than a paper about cats and motorcycles. There are two ways to organize a compare and contrast paper. You can either do it point by point or by subject. So let's look at what point by point looks like first. So we start with a purpose statement, which is, which resort would I enjoy the most? So you're deciding on a vacation and you're thinking, I'd like to go to Alaska, but I'd also like to go to the Bahamas. Those seem like very different places, and they are, but they're going to have certain things that are alike. So if you think about when you go on a vacation, what maybe the three or four most important things about the vacation are to you, you come up with the location, how long it takes to get there, the hotel amenities, and then the things you can do in the region that are fun. So in a point-by-point discussion, you would look at the location, and you would talk about the Bahamas, and then you would talk about Alaska. In travel time, you look at Bahamas and then talk about Alaska. Those two might be rather short. I mean, how many ways can you say where Alaska is or where the Bahamas is? But when you get down to the next category, hotel amenities, comparing the Bahamas to Alaska is going to get a little bit more in depth. For example, do they both have spas? What kinds of activities do they have? If you're traveling with a family, do you need to look for children's activities? Are you looking for more activities geared towards singles or towards couples? Then lastly, the regional activities. What types of things can you do in the Bahamas versus Alaska? Now, most Alaskan vacations have some kind of water interest, whale watching or some kind of boating. Or the Bahamas, you might say, well, this is very different, but I could actually do something similar. I could maybe go on a dolphin tour. The second way to set up a compare and contrast essay is by comparing subject by subject. So in this one, the purpose statement here would be, which movie should I see? And at that time, you would write all about movie A first and then write about movie B. You're still comparing them on the same things, so you're comparing their storylines, the actors that are in it, the cinematography and the setting, but you're only discussing the first movie first. And then once you finish that, then you discuss the second movie. So when you're reading compare and contrast, you need to figure out what the purpose is of what you're reading. So you need to find the thesis statement. That's usually in the first paragraph, but in a longer piece, it can be a couple paragraphs in. You need to figure out what the points are that are being compared, or what are the topics that are being compared. And then look at the examples and the details. How does the author use those to support the thesis? The logical organization. How is the paper organized, and does it make sense? Looking at the summary and the conclusion, you need to figure out what the author's conclusion is, and if you draw the same one. So let's look at these pictures. This is called social networking then and now. On the top we have cavemen sitting by a fire talking, and at the bottom we have kind of the same image, but everyone's now connected to their devices. So pause the video for a few moments and look at how many differences and similarities you can find between the pictures. For example, take a moment and look at the campfire, and what does the missing campfire or the dying campfire indicate about the author's point of view?